Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in London as European allies aim to strengthen Kyiv's position in peace talks on a US-backed settlement. A major sticking point is US pressure on Ukraine to cede parts of Donbass to Russia. Starmer said any ceasefire must be just and lasting. President Trump, expressing frustration with Zelensky, claims Russia is ready to accept the plan. Meanwhile, Russian drone attacks continued across Ukraine, injuring civilians as Moscow and Washington signal openness to improve relations under the new U.S. strategy. A draft U.S. defense budget for 2026 includes $400 million in assistance for Ukraine, despite President Trump declaring he no longer wants Washington to fund the war. The $901 billion National Defense Authorization Act exceeds Trump's request and maintains intelligence sharing and support for Ukraine's defense capabilities. It also incorporates Trump priorities such as Golden Dome missile defense funding and rollbacks of woke military policies. The bill notes continued U.S. pressure on Kiev to accept a compromise peace plan as Ukraine faces worsening battlefield conditions and political turmoil following the resignation of top Zelensky aide Andriy Yermak. The Kremlin says elements of the newly revised U.S. national security strategy under President Trump align with Russia's own positions, especially calls to reestablish strategic stability and the perception of NATO expansion and pursue a negotiated end to the Ukraine conflict. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov praised the shift as a major turnaround from previous U.S. administrations, but warned the American deep state could undermine Trump's policy. He said the strategy's emphasis on dialogue and better relations reflects the stance of President Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, the NSS criticizes European supporters of Kiev as unrealistic, prompting German pushback. European Council President Antonio Costa warned the U.S. not to interfere in European politics after the new U.S. national security strategy criticized Europe's migration and free speech policies and expressed support for far-right movements. Costa said only European citizens can decide which parties govern them and stressed that allies shouldn't threaten each other's democratic choices.
The United States cannot replace European citizens in choosing which parties are good and which are bad.
Hungary says it will challenge the EU's Repower EU plan to phase out Russian energy at the European Court of Justice, arguing the policy threatens national energy security. The EU initiative aims to end Russian LNG imports by late 2026 and phase out pipeline gas by November 2027. Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó said Hungary and Slovakia will request annulment and suspension of the rules, calling the measures massive legal fraud. Budapest insists such sanctions require unanimous EU approval, but claims Brussels circumvented veto rights using trade and energy law. Both Hungary and Slovakia warned the ban would sharply raise costs and endanger supply. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch blasted the SNP for only launching a review into grooming gangs, believing that Scotland should be included in the national inquiry.
Make sure that they get this done.
I mean, they may think this is an opportunity to collaborate with you. You've not spoken to any of those parties about this proposed terms of reference.
They've not reached out to us at all. They can see all the work we've been doing. They can see that the survivors are coming to us, working with us. If other parties were interested, they would have reached out.
Okay.
The fact is, they're not.
Well,
there was only one Reform MP who was interested, and they've kicked him out. They use this for political opportunism. I am doing this because I actually care what happens to those girls. Their stories are heartbreaking, and I'm not going to waste time with people who want to faff about. Let's get this done. Jess Phillips needs to do her job. Keir Starmer needs to make sure we get a national inquiry.
This has been James O'Neill for The World Today.
There is a problem with medicine, and we can explain what it is by looking back to the discovery of penicillin. Penicillin, it turns out, was not just an accidental finding. Alexander Fleming discovered that mold he found in a culture dish was killing bacteria, but it took over 10 years before a team at Oxford University were able to isolate the active ingredient. They produced small quantities for preclinical and clinical trials, helping prove the compound was safe and could beat infection. However, they couldn't produce it at scale. In 1941, Andrew Jackson Moyer of the US Department of Agriculture, the forerunner to the FDA, suggested changes to the manufacturing process, enabling mass production. It turns out medicines are not invented when someone discovers a new molecular entity. They are the product of key stakeholders working together collaboratively. Until medicine can be manufactured at scale, it may as well not exist. And in 2025, this is a problem. In the 1980s, pharmaceutical companies began outsourcing production. Suddenly the system was significantly less integrated. Someone with a new discovery today will find themselves disconnected from the rest of the development and manufacturing process. Companies that develop medicine are still happy to work with big established pharma companies, but the modern day Flemings are cut out of the system. The result is far fewer new medicines coming to market. We want to fix this by ensuring the pharma industry builds a more integrated supply chain. We also believe that doctors' expertise administering medicine should be included at the beginning of the process. We know that doctors on the front line have insights about how to repurpose medicine. Doctors should be able to report their findings so that the necessary testing can be completed and they can share the results worldwide. Learn more here and help us take medicines back to the future.
With your help, we can continue to fight for freedom, reach new audiences, and bring important information to the public free of charge. This is not possible without your generosity. Join our quest for the truth and our freedom and donate today, telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.
And welcome to the Protagonists. This is the world today. We have some exciting news not too far down the track. And what do they say? Chango, they'll be back again, and we may be back in a very big way. So fingers crossed, it's been a good day. Our topic today for the Protagonist, failures in UK pharma and biotech. We've had the pandemic, the expensive inquiries or cover-ups, evidence of the corruption of scientific publications, and payments to the medical establishment that tragically encourage citizens to take the jab, resulting in shocking death and injuries for little recompense. The question is asked many times, do we now all exist in a moral vacuum that governments can do as they please, even maim and injure, and corruption is so obvious it triggers little outrage or demand for accountability? Our panel today will give us valuable insights into the highly lucrative pharmaceutical industry, into the individuals who have made it to the top, to the regulatory agencies funded by taxpayers to protect them from risky drugs, and how they've failed so spectacularly during the most critical time. Has anything changed? We suspect not, because the regulatory agencies and their masters have completely avoided scrutiny despite the terrible, absolutely dreadful toll. We do need to ask how influential the UK pharmaceutical industrial complex was in the global COVID scam. And is this where the buck should ultimately stop? We have a magnificent panel today. We have Alison Wright, she's an independent researcher and investigator. Hedley Rees, MD at PharmaFlow, and Cheryl Granger, a training consultant for the pharma industry. And thank you very much for joining me. Hedley, I just want to lead with you first of all. The drug regulation and safety in the UK, tell us about the key agencies involved.
Well, it should only be one agency, Mike, and that's the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. They are what is known as a competent authority, so they have delegated responsibility from government to keep patients safe and ensure that, trading of drugs on the internet and all these things that go on have to be properly monitored, scrutinized, and stopped. And unfortunately, they have been infiltrated by what I would call people who really aren't regulators. If we take the current of the MHRA, he was the joint chair of the JCVI. So he was actually part of interviewing the companies who were going to sell the jabs. In 2016, they all had interviews with the companies behind closed doors. And, if that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. And, you've heard from me lots of times, and I keep on saying the same thing, Mike, but I think Cheryl and Alison are seeing a similar picture. And, I'd like to hear what they think as well.
Alison, what do you think? We have no audio there. What about Cheryl? What do you think? We do. We have that issue at the moment, which is not looking good. It could be a solo effort here with Hedley and myself. So we'll keep plodding through this, if you don't mind, just to see. We're talking with Hedley about the key agencies involved with the drug regulation and safety in the UK. Do you know enough about that to talk about it? No, we have a problem. What I might just do is just go to a quick commercial break, and we'll try and get the audio and some of the vision fixed up too. This is The World Today.
Hey there, I'm Lance Bass, and this is CHIP. For more than 100 years, American Humane has been on the front lines protecting animals in times of crisis. From Pearl Harbor to 9/11, the California wildfires, and the coronavirus pandemic, American Humane Rescue has provided life-saving assistance for animals in virtually every major national disaster. If you're anything like me, your pets mean the world to you. And if disaster strikes, you want to keep them safe. To prepare for an oncoming disaster, ensure your pet has secure and up-to-date identification. And if you must evacuate, remember to take your disaster preparedness kit with you. To learn more about disaster planning and how to keep your best friends safe, please visit AmericanHumane.org.
G'day, Troy Casadale here. I've been travelling around this country playing music for more years than I'd like to remember. I've spent a lot of time on stage, but I reckon I've spent more time on the roads getting to gigs. And honestly, I've seen worse behaviour on the roads than I've seen at any concert of mine, and often from people who have years of experience behind the wheel. It's probably been a while since a lot of us have really thought about our driving, so take a sec and think about what you can do to help keep yourself and others safe on the roads. Us mob are almost 3 times more likely to die in a road crash than the rest of the population. So let's change that. Drive safely. Don't get distracted by the phone or others in the car, or get hot-headed or any of that stuff. You wouldn't do inconsiderate things outside a car, so why do them in one? Don't let a car change who you are. Safer driving starts with you.
Telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.
Makers are facing more travel
When we're on the go, it's easy to go into our own world. Keep your mind on the road.
Our beautiful world is changing, withering, dying by the hands of those who don't value nature, even though we all depend on it for life itself. But there is hope. Together with caring friends, the Nature Conservancy can restore our lands, heal our waters, and save our wildlife with big solutions only nature can provide. But every day we lose more of the places we love, And we urgently need to save endangered lands, waters, and wild species. The actions we take today will determine the tomorrow we leave to our children and grandchildren. The water they drink, the air they breathe, the beauty they experience. To learn more about how you can help protect and conserve our beautiful world, visit nature.org today.
Asthma is a growing problem, especially among children. Asthma affects the quality of life for millions like me every single day. My name is Chris Draft, and I have asthma. And I've spent more than a decade in the NFL tackling asthma on and off the field. Join me in the EPA in helping people control their asthma. Asthma is a lung condition that can be controlled through medication and by avoiding things that can make it worse. 3 steps are the solution to controlling asthma. Step 1, talk to a doctor. Step 2, make a plan. And step 3, get rid of things that can make it worse. Asthma can be tackled. For more information on asthma, log on to epa.gov/asthma.
We're today's News Talk, the world today.
And welcome back to the world today and the protagonists having some technical issues. We'll toss up a coin and see how this goes. Cheryl Granger, can you just tell me, with all the terrible things that have happened so far with the maiming and the death of many people, has anyone been held accountable? We probably need to put your microphone on too, Cheryl. It's just that little button that says mic on. So we have no audio there either, and Cheryl's frozen now. So what you might do is just go to a top cam. We have not much luck here at all. So Hedley, it's going to be you and I for a while till we can work out the gremlins. Tell me, anyone been held accountable that you know of?
Well, I want to say sort of an overriding thing in relation to what's happening in Britain, because in 2001, I think this is pivotal to the whole thing. The UK government set up what they would call the Ministerial Industry Strategy Group, which was a yearly meeting with Big Pharma. The first chair of that meeting was Dr. Tom McKillop, who was the chief executive of AstraZeneca. And also on that committee was the chief executive of GlaxoSmithKline. So for 20 odd years, the UK government has been having meetings with Big Pharma on basically, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. You're successful in pharma. We want to become number 1 in the world. So let's work together. Unfortunately, the ways of Big Pharma, which basically is focusing on sales and marketing and patenting molecular compounds and all those things, forced the whole industry to make money by doing things that were not the counter to the regulations, if you like. And we've seen a gradual decline in the behavior of the pharmaceutical industry for all this time. Now, we've seen it with the MHRA because I've said this before, but the MHRA lost all its ability to approve drugs when the European Medicines Agency moved to the Netherlands. So the MHRA has not the ability to approve drugs, and they did not have the ability to approve these drugs when they came out, the injections. And unfortunately, we just saw those injections wave through. And then we had the Bill Gates machinery behind it. He was on speed dial with Boris Johnson. They were basically fast tracking the manufacturing through. So it was completely corrupt, and I think people suspect it, but quietly and slowly but surely, this is starting to come out. I've got the minutes of all those meetings. They're in the government archives, and they talk about the pharmaceutical competitiveness index and how they're going to, make that work. And people don't know this has been going on. I do think, Mike, and TWT, it's important that you are getting this out. I know we've had a few technical difficulties this morning, but there are people who are speaking out, and Cheryl, Alison, and so whichever way we can help, then let's do that.
We're going to try this again, Cheryl. We've put our couple of quarters into the machine, and we're hoping it works. I asked before we had to cut to a commercial break. We saw what happened over the terrible times of lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, and many people have died, and have died ever since because of we would say because of the vaccines, inverted commas. Can you tell me if anyone's been held accountable? No, we're not working at all. It's not going to work. We'll just go to a top cam, and I'm going to go back to Hedley now. It's just one of those days at the moment. It's just not going to work, is it? Hedley, some of the worst examples, if you could tell me, please, the conflicts of interest of, say, fraud findings in recent years with key individuals, key agencies, and key companies.
Yeah, well, a key company in all of this is a company called Oxford Biomedica, who are based in Cowley in Oxford. I consulted to them. I used to be a thought leader in the industry, and potentially I still will be. And so they asked me to consult to this company working in gene therapy on the Advanced Manufacturing Supply Chain Initiative. So they wanted advanced supply chain skills. And what they told me it was that the pharmaceutical companies, the life sciences companies, did not have those skills. And would I consult to this company and put a bid together that would allow them to win a government grant? I did that, and they had a £7.1 million grant. And just after that, in mid-2014, I was invited along to a very high-profile meeting in London at what was then the BIS headquarters. And just after I had that award, GSK had an award. So that meeting had Roger Connor from GSK there, who was head of their vaccines. It had also had people there who set up the Medicines Manufacturing Industry Partnership. Now, this is crucial because that partnership basically put all the UK companies together to again try and catapult UK business in life sciences into being number one in the world. And we saw a lot of companies in the UK actually working together, and even though the technology, the gene therapy technology that they were working on, basically was very immature. And after finishing that grant, I knew that there was a long way to go, if ever, before that gene-modified cell therapy could ever become a viability. And we're beginning to see now that it is not a viability without it actually damaging people. So, so we've got the UK Health Security Agency now, which some would say is the marketing arm of the Bill Gates healthcare, because they are creating all the demand for these vaccines. And I was going to say, welcome to the flu season in the UK, because I just had flu. I've never had flu before. I've never been so ill. But it's coincided with the fact when they started to vaccinate everyone in the UK. And now people are going out to get the vaccination. Now, I don't know what's behind that, but if people are getting the flu when they're being vaccinated, what's going on there? None of this makes sense. Absolutely.
Well, obviously, it would mean, though, that the inverted commas vaccine's not working.
Oh, absolutely. But
maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, but where's common sense? But so I begin to lose it sometimes, and I almost thought I wasn't going to be able to speak on here because I was losing my voice, but I managed to get through it. But
You're chatting
so
magnificent. And by the way, because we have bad internet with the other ones, you are not going to leave at all. You're going to be there till the end of the show. Otherwise, I've got to talk to myself, and I do that often, apparently. But yeah, sorry, I jumped in too much. You were saying something, and I was trying to be stupid.
no. Well, so it always goes back to this UK government, and this has come from the coalition government. This goes from Tony Blair to then the Tories, Cameron, Vince Cable, the coalition government, Tories again, Labour. This meeting has continued with Big Pharma, so it's been, two cheeks to the same bottom sort of thing. They're all been pushing the UK as becoming number one in the world in gene therapy. And we're beginning to realize that's a bit of a lost cause. And the serious element of it, of course, is, these injections are killing people. And I think the biggest tragedy of all is that the vaccine injured, I'm on Facebook, and people have been connected up with me. I've tried to help the vaccine injured, and what they're going through, they've been to hell and back. And no one is doing anything. We've just had the Hallett inquiry, this inquiry into COVID. What a joke that was. By golly, they should be ashamed of themselves. But, it's still carrying on. And until someone grabs hold of it and says, look, these governments, no matter which one you've got, they're still going to be pushing these jabs, then nothing's going to change. And, I don't want to get into politics because, that's your domain, not mine, Mike. But,
No, we've got time. The stage is yours.
Yeah.
So feel free. I'm just thinking though, the vaccine injured. What sort of injuries do you suggest that they get treatment for?
Well, there's this thing they call VIT. Blood clots is a big element to this. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how this works medically, but it's well known that, people around me where I live have got blood clots. It's very common now. The doctor's giving them something to stop the blood clot leaving the spot where it is. Well, can't we dissolve it? No, we can't dissolve it. We're just going to give you something to make sure it doesn't move. Oh, by golly, doctors have got no solution to these things. So strokes, we see in all sorts of different things. And I'll go back to what I've said before. The gene-modified cell therapy is known as CAR-T, for rare blood cancers, $475,000 for one treatment. The side effects have got an FDA black box warning on them. The side effects are cytokine release syndrome, neurological toxicities, and secondary cancers. And this is the same technology as these injections. So what they've done, as far as I'm concerned, and I've stand up in court and talked to this, is to say that they have rebranded these CAR-T therapies that were not selling, and they've converted them into sterile injectables. That way they've become cheaper, and obviously they've created the demand through all this scaremongering. And we've now got this horrible situation where people are just happily having these drugs, even though they're going to do them damage. So we have got to have. I think it's in the US. I can see, people have woken up, but because this is focused on the UK, Britain is the centre of this whole thing. Why was Bill Gates on speed dial terms with Boris Johnson? Why was Boris Johnson going to these companies like Oxford Biomedica to visit them? And all this evidence is out there, but no one's picking up on it. But I think with Robert Kennedy Jr. now doing a lot of things with the FDA, and we've got Vinay Prasad, who's now head of Centre for Biologics Evaluation and Review, all doing very important things. And I don't think that's going to go back in the box, because I think Donald Trump is behind it. There's a huge, from the people who've left the HSS and the FDA, there's a huge political and lobbying back pressure against Robert Kennedy Jr. And you wouldn't believe the people who are sort of lobbying against RFK Jr. A lot of money behind it. You've got the former head of the vaccines. He's gone to work for Eli Lilly now, one of the biggest. I think it's just been valued at the first trillion-dollar company. And the guy who was waving these vaccines through in the US is now working for them. And so, it's still going on. People need to be aware. We need to be sure that we don't let Robert Kennedy Jr. actually be pushed aside, pushed out of HSS, because on balance, he's doing a lot of good stuff. And I think it's got to come from the US now. We do have Nigel Farage at Reform. I don't know him. I don't know how good he is, but I'm hoping he understands the severity of these injections. He's got a good relationship with Donald Trump. And, I just think there needs to be some sort of political solution where a politician in Britain will stand up and say, and repeat the things I'm saying here.
I'm going to try again because we've been, oops, it's not going to work. Can't do much about it. We'll try this one out. Going to every little button I have. Cheryl, can you hear me? No.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. We can just hear you because you have a very bad internet. I'm sorry to say what we have at the moment is you have less than 1 bar according to our tech guys. So it's very, very hard. We'll try this anyway. I asked before, as you've just disappeared, that's always a good. That's all. Back to you, Hedley. I love you. So tell me this, Hedley. I need to ask. You're a guy that you seem pretty fit. You're out and about. You know your stuff. And you said you'd never had it before. How did you get the flu? Because you mentioned you haven't had it before. So what do you think happened?
I do not know. All I know is that about 3 years ago, my wife and I were in London. Everyone was getting vaxxed up. And she came down with something awful, a bit worse than what I've got now. And I said, this is people shedding, this isn't the flu, this is people who've had the jabs shedding something that's causing this. And you lose your sense of taste and smell, and you feel awful, and that's how I feel now. But it's like some artificial flu, and I can't explain it. I've looked on the internet, it says, well, no, these injections don't shed, but I've never had anything like this, and my taste has gone. Something is going on with these injections, and I just hope there's an honest doctor somewhere who can, or an honest scientist who will say, yeah, this is to do with all these campaigns we have to get people injected up. I've never had this before, and I'm just coming out of it now, hopefully. But there we are, that's evidence.
We call you an ambulance. Before you do fall off the perch, I just need to know, okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You would have been talking to Mrs. Rees about this, and you have little conversations. Oh, maybe it's that. You're an intelligent person, and you know how the industry works, and you know things. What's your gut feeling about this? And I can tell you that bug you're talking about, the flu, is that we've had it here too, and I've had it, and I just used to put it down to, probably working too hard or whatever, because I never got the shot, don't need it. But others have also had it who had the shot, and they've been really crook. Do you think there's I've got the actual term for it. Do you think maybe it could have been the vaccine? What do they call it when you can pass it on to someone? I've forgotten the word for it. Is this a byproduct of the vaccines, and has it actually crossed over to those that haven't had the shot to give them the give them the same sort of garbage inside their body, which is gene therapy?
I think so. I've got no evidence for that. I can't think of any other explanation. My wife tells me, no, it's just COVID. I say, no,
Tell them there's no such thing. Stop it. Tell them there is. It's a flu, but it's another name for the flu, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say it's a man-made thing. It's a man-made thing, and but so many people talk about I've got COVID. I've lost my sense of taste, but there's no such disease. So where did it come from? And it's coincidental that we've been injecting the world with these injections, and then people who didn't have the injections are getting flu. But maybe that will come out in the course of time. I don't know, but we need to stop that. I mean, these injections are so ridiculous. We need to stop them instantly, and who's got the power to do that? I don't know. It's got to come from the US. I think that there are signs that people are getting hold of this politically, but I don't know. I do see a lot of, I get frustrated because I see a lot of things going on in Congress, and I've spoken to a lot of these lawyers. I've told them stuff. They don't listen to what I'm telling them. I've got so much evidence on malfeasance in the supply chain, of inspections that should have closed the companies down making these vaccines, and they never were. And no one asked me anything, and it frustrates the hell out of me because I don't want to make a lot of money, but there's a lot of lawyers making a lot of money out of this, and they don't really have a lot of evidence that they are sort of knowing what they're talking about. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn there, I don't know, but I have got two books behind me that shows I know a little something about what I'm talking about, and hopefully one day someone will ask me for my opinion who's got a legal background.
Little Carol, one of our chatters on chat, she reminded me it's called shedding. I couldn't think of the word because I didn't think we'd be talking about it, but shedding. And I used to, for a little while, I not poo-pooed. I thought, oh, maybe it's, we're talking Star Trek, beam me up, that sort of stuff. I actually do believe that this is what they've been, and you often read in the on the news or in the newspapers or whatever, how they've, their aim is, and they can do now, they can make sure everybody gets the benefits of the vaccine, whether you get it or not. You're going to get it. And Peter McCullough was also talking years ago when we used to have, because we did a lot. That's why we're hated by all governments, and including all social media platforms. They dislike us because we just wanted to tell the truth. We got Peter on and all sorts of terrible people. They would come on and tell us the truth. He actually alluded to the fact at one stage of shedding. That's a very efficient way, isn't it, for big pharma or government to get their inverted commas, their message to everybody, the vaccine.
Oh yeah, I mean, I googled it. Look, and Alison used it perplexedly. She taught me AI, and I said, "Do these vaccines shed?" And it very definitely said, "Oh no, these only live attenuated vaccines will shed. These vaccines just, they don't shed." Which made me think, well, why is it so certain they don't shed? And I'm convinced there is a shedding element to this that I don't understand. People don't understand, but someone should be looking at that seriously to work out if it is a possibility. And if that is the case, then by golly, yeah. So
as you pass away, we do have Cheryl, but Cheryl won't work because her internet is absolutely deplorable. We'll go to this one. This is even better. As you drink some vodka and water. Sorry about that, Hedley. Now, by the way, it was Little Miss L. Little Miss L, by the way, had the shedding thing, so I didn't credit her. She's working very hard there. And it's I think Little Miss L's in Australia, so she'll be probably polishing off the second glass of Chardonnay. Well, maybe lucky her. So we're sort of, we're talking, we're just talking now because we've lost our most of our panel. You mentioned before the UK, it was a centre of warp speed. You thought it was. Why would the UK be the centre of warp speed? Why not the US?
Well, GSK is the centre of it. GlaxoSmithKline. In the 1990s, Glaxo was the biggest pharmaceutical company in the world. It made the UK the biggest noise in pharma. The then chief executive was a guy called Sir Richard Sykes. Now, he went through two major acquisitions, Wellcome and SmithKline Beecham, and it became GlaxoSmithKline. And they went from number one in the world to they're just dropping out the top 10 now. So they've gone nowhere. And those were $200 billion worth of acquisitions. So they're in deep trouble. They're going nowhere. And in the US, the advisor to Donald Trump was a guy called Monsif Slaoui, a 30-year board member at GSK. He was also on the Moderna board, and he was also on the Lonza board, and he was advising Donald Trump now, and he was had huge investment in GSK, share options, etc. And his boss, Sir Richard Sykes, was the head of the vaccine task force in the UK. And his VP of supply chain, Ian McCubbin, was basically coordinated the whole of the launch of the vaccines out of GSK site in Barnard Castle. Now you remember Dominic Cummings went to Barnard Castle to test his eyesight. He didn't go to test his eyesight. He went there 2 days before the Pfizer vaccine was approved, so that he made sure everything was lined up with Boris Johnson. And that was the first vaccine, and then they all got approved in lockstep through the MHRA, which didn't have the skills to approve a vaccine anyway. And that is the long and the short of it. GSK, working with other big pharma companies, because they were all invested in making these injections work, because they were all getting the cut of it. And our contractors were getting the cut of it as well. And that's what we had. So GSK, AstraZeneca, because the association of the British industry has always been a global organization that controls the whole industry, based in Britain. Every pharmaceutical company in the world is a member of the ABPI, and Cheryl will know that. And so the coordination ability of an organization like that is phenomenal. And it was coordinated in the UK through the auspices of the UK government, the Medicines and Manufacturing Industry Partnership, and universities, all these universities and these government bodies like the Centre for Process Innovation, Cambridge University. They were all heavily into this, getting funding, getting research grants, having huge success apparently, when actually all they were doing is working on these useless therapies that are harming people.
What's at the heart of COVID vaccine safety failure?
Well, when you put it's called gene-modified cell therapy using CRISPR. So CRISPR is a gene editing tool, and it's hugely experimental. They started to experiment on this in 1960, so it's been under development all that time. And this is what they've used with the CAR T therapies, but it's unproven because you don't know when you put CRISPR. You take an animal cell, and then you create what they call a plasmid, which is a small stretch of DNA, and then you put it in the patient. That's what they call the spike protein, and you put it in the patient's body. But you ain't got a clue what it's going to do when it goes in the patient's body, because it's just a biological different. Different people react differently, and totally experimental. No evidence to say it's going to work, and it's only because of the fraudulent regulatory process that this has been allowed to go ahead. Oh, excuse me. I think my purchase will begin to sort of shake you.
I can hear the pain, but you don't sound well. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because I thought you were bulletproof. And
no, I'm still here with you. I'm still hanging in there.
No, I'm just thinking that you are a mere human.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
I just wanted we're chatting now, just talking about things. Tell me about your book again, COVID Supply Chain, Fact Not Fiction, just to bring us up to speed.
Yeah, I wrote that in August 2023 because I thought there's going to come a time where people want to know, in simple terms, the layman, the man in the street, or the person in the street, what's the real mechanics of developing drugs? So I've written all about the cold chain, how the different temperatures, the regulations, in very simple terms, common sense. You know, when the drug goes into someone's body, you have to do what they call drug metabolism, pharmacokinetics. So you have to see what the drug does to the body and the body does to the drug. So, you know, even if you've put a safe drug in someone's body, sometimes the body can alter the drug so that it collects in a certain organ or whatever that makes it toxic. And all these things have to go on, which people don't understand. And that's why it takes 3 years even to get a drug into humans. And it takes 7 years to get human trials finished, because you have to build a supply chain, then do the safety testing. So it's an easy read. It's about 130, 140 pages. And armed with that, you could go to court yourself, and you could instruct a barrister, and you could say, look, these are the regulations. This is all how it should have happened. It didn't happen. And if they want another book, I've got another book that's come out from Wiley, but it hadn't sold at all. This COVID supply chain one hasn't sold at all. It would be wonderful if someone bought it, because it's self-published, and it will help me. It's about a tenner, I think, but and it's and there's a Kindle version, and yeah. So and I do appreciate you showing that, Mike, and also the little advert, the animation. I really appreciate that.
What I want to do, this will give you a chance to have a bit of a gurgle. In the meantime, I'll play you this, and I'll play this spot again. I think it's very interesting, and I think it's not. We play it once every hour, and it is not burning out, as we would say in the industry. It's still very, very interesting. I'll play this now. You have a gurgle, and come back, and we'll talk about that. This is the Protagonist, down to one, and he's struggling, but we'll get there here on The World Today.
There is a problem with medicine, and we can explain what it is by looking back to the discovery of penicillin. Penicillin, it turns out, was not just an accidental finding. Alexander Fleming discovered that mold he found in a culture dish was killing bacteria, but it took over 10 years before a team at Oxford University were able to isolate the active ingredient. They produced small quantities for preclinical and clinical trials, helping prove the compound was safe and could beat infection. However, they couldn't produce it at scale. In 1941, Andrew Jackson Moyer of the US Department of Agriculture, the forerunner to the FDA, suggested changes to the manufacturing process, enabling mass production. It turns out medicines are not invented when someone discovers a new molecular entity. They are the product of key stakeholders working together collaboratively. Until medicine can be manufactured at scale, it may as well not exist. And in 2025, this is a problem. In the 1980s, pharmaceutical companies began outsourcing production. Suddenly the system was significantly less integrated. Someone with a new discovery today will find themselves disconnected from the rest of the development and manufacturing process. Companies that develop medicine are still happy to work with big established pharma companies, but the modern day Flemings are cut out of the system. The result is far fewer new medicines coming to market. We want to fix this by ensuring the pharma industry builds a more integrated supply chain. We also believe that doctors' expertise administering medicine should be included at the beginning of the process. We know that doctors on the front line have insights about how to repurpose medicine. Doctors should be able to report their findings so that the necessary testing can be completed and they can share their results worldwide. Learn more here and help us take medicines back to the future.
And my guest here at the Protagonists, we've got some funny little thing happening. Just before we get into it, a grumpy old woman, I presume she's in Australia, if not she's starting the day off with a bang. She says she's gurgling on her Prosecco. Will that do any good, Hedley, for the flu?
Well, I'm willing to try anything.
I really hope, grumpy old woman, you are in Australia, because if you're in England, that's why you're grumpy. And that's obviously why you're grumpy, because you're starting early. That's an early opener drink. I mean, magnificent. And I wonder if she uses a toothbrush at the same time. I don't know about this. Jen's been writing to me. Jen's our producer here. Could you just, I'm just trying to read this from what Jen said. How did they drive the manufacture and distribution proceeds, and why did the regulatory authorities regulate?
Just say it again, Mike, just so I'm clear.
Sorry?
What was the question?
I have to. Jen's written in Swaziland, because she's not doing this on the fly. But she said, "How do they drive the manufacture and distribution proceeds, and why did they regulate?" That's what I'm reading here. So, but the question should be, why do they drive the manufacture and distribution proceeds? Now Jen's has written back to me. It's just a bunch of letters, so I can't read Swaziland. But if you get an idea what Jen's saying.
I can say that, though. These injections were already being made. They were already being made by contract manufacturers. So these didn't come to market in 12 months. They came to market. They shortened the timeline by freezing them down and that sort of thing. But these were already being manufactured starting in 2013, these gene therapies. So that's how they did it so quick. And they just ignored the regulations. It's because Bill Gates had captured all the regulatory authorities. Fortunately, FDA is back on track now. But what I would say with that video is that this is what people need to understand. It always was. You had to have a patent of a process that could manufacture the product before you could sell it. Not patent a molecular compound, which is a complete nonsense. That's why 98% of all products in development fail. Now, that is a nonsense. But if you can't make the product, how the heck can you sell it? How the heck can you get it to market? And when I talk about taking medicines back to the future, it's about going to the before the 1980s, when actually companies had to do all the hard yard work to prove that the process, like the penicillin, took 16 years to get penicillin to market. But when it got there, by golly, it made a huge difference in the world. We're never going to see that again unless we change radically.
Yeah, I find it very interesting. Jen has just sent through another one, and she's included some English into this one, which is great. Said none of them tested for safety. What are they there for? And people died from the vax.
Yeah, well, what are they there for? Well, dollars. This is why this whole depopulation thing, toxic by design, that's all a diversion. This was all about big pharma was going down the pound. The only drug they had were these CAR T therapies, $500,000 a pop, huge side effects. What were they going to do? Well, last chance saloon will commit fraud. And that's what happened. And it killed people. And, and that is the long and the short of it. And someone's got to grab hold of it and actually say, okay, that is true. And so yes, so I don't know what more to say, but
not much. I just want to know the other thing, because we're going to talk about your video after you've come back consuming, as Grumpy Old Woman does, a couple of bottles of Prosecco. Can you just summarise the video for us, because we are playing it a lot and we'll keep playing it. So just from your viewpoint.
Yeah. Okay. Well, doctors very often make chance discoveries, which is what Fleming did. He was a physician, but he was also working. He was working on developing drugs. He wasn't a chemist, so he couldn't isolate the compound. But he noticed that that compound in the culture dish was actually killing bacteria, and that's essential. So there was no molecular modeling involved. No one was talking about mechanism of action or anything. He just made a chance observation. If he hadn't spoken to Oxford University, he'd still be there now scratching his head if he was alive, which he wouldn't have been. Oxford University told him what was the active ingredient in that, but Oxford University couldn't make it in any quantity. So they had to go to an expert in manufacturing molds who devised the process, patented the process, and then they gave it to the world. They gave it to the big pharma companies. So those three parties need to collaborate to get a drug to market. And if they had been together all at the same time, instead of it taking 16 years for penicillin to get to market, it would have taken about 4 or 5 years, because they would have all been working together, collaborating. So there are ways of bringing drugs much quicker to market, but we've got to stop this silly molecular modeling discovery research. When you do this discovery research, you don't discover anything. All you discover is a molecule, and you've still got 10 years hard yards work to try and work out if it's a drug or not. So and my next task now with this book for Wiley is to create education programs for doctors, medical schools, to understand the mechanics of developing drugs, and that they can actually work with people who develop drugs. Doctors can develop their own drugs, particularly things like ivermectin. They could bring a drug like ivermectin to market, but because it wasn't licensed for a respiratory condition, they couldn't actually use it. And people like Pierre Corey, who were getting good results with ivermectin, were prevented from using it. Now, we could give someone like Pierre Corey a real leg up by helping him, and not just ivermectin, but other drugs as well. Off-label prescribing of drugs is common, and off-label means that if you prescribe a drug off-label, it means a doctor is seeing it work in something, but it hasn't been licensed, so he can't prescribe it officially, but he can say, I've got enough evidence of my own. So, and that's where we need to go. We need to get doctors working with the people who understand what's called the chemistry, manufacturing, and controls element, the supply chain element, the piece that makes a drug safe and effective.
Yeah, totally agree. And you've done a sterling job. You've lasted the hour. You deserve. By the way, we've had some very disturbing messages on our chat. Grumpy Old Woman said, it's not her. I'm not reading the messages properly. Apparently she is in England and she hasn't ploughed into a bottle of Prosecco just yet. She's going to wait till she has a cup of tea, I think. And by the way, that's little Miss L. She's in Australia and she's on to her third bottle at the moment. Anyway, Hedley, again, if somebody wants to get hold of your books, how do they do that?
Well, if you go on Amazon, all my books are on there. Whatever Amazon site you're on, put in my name, Hedley Rees, and all the books will come up. Self-published, Taming the Big Pharma Monster, COVID, fact not fiction, some of the more expensive ones. And I do a Substack, Inside Pharma, free, and it's got all the evidence in there. People find that very interesting. And you go on Rumble, you find interviews. And I've been quite often with a guy called Mike Ryan on TWT a few times as well. So
very bad person, apparently, according to the old woman. She's going to get her lawyers onto me. How dare you say I'm drinking before I have my first drink? But I've got to say, Hedley, it's been wonderful. We do have some news coming up in the next, we think, next couple of weeks with some very good news that we will be extending and probably 24/7 again. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed. It's taken a long time, and of course we've enjoyed Jen and I and my wife Lynn and Cam have enjoyed the stress beyond all belief. And that's why when someone talks about gurgling on a Prosecco, I could polish it off in no time. Hedley, you are a true champion. You deserve not the Iron Cross, wrong country. You deserve the Victoria Cross. And,
tell my wife that, Mike. She won't believe you.
No, she won't. I mean, that's what wives do. But, you know,
you take care, my friend.
Isn't it funny as we're just chatting away? Isn't it funny, though, that a bunch of guys will go out, blokes will go out and have a few drinks. It's amazing how brave they are until they all go home. Anyway, so good luck to you. And say hello to Mrs. Rees. Tell her all the things that we were saying about you is spot on. Hedley Rees, thank you very much for your time. This has been a very relaxed version of The Protagonists. There's no protagonising going on here. And it's the world today, and Hedley Rees hopefully will be here with us again in the not too distant future. Get well, Hedley. You are just fantastic. Thank you very much. This is The Protagonists.